Hi, I'm Duncan from Fishhead, and today we're talking about the Zenaq Ikari DBL 56 J10 jig rods. So we've got a spin and an overhead version to talk about today. In the labelling, FS56 for spin, FS56 J10, and FB56 J10 for the overhead or bait cast version. Okay, so these are all-round heavy-duty jig rods. They're designed to jig anything between 150 grams and 400 grams. They're standards, what I would call a standard shorter length for heavy-duty jigging at 5'6". They're rated to fish P4 to P8, with I think P6 being about the optimal level for them. So great all-rounders for all kinds of large pelagic fish, big amberjacks, kingfish, that sort of thing. Physically, not overly heavy, so nice and easy to jig with for long sessions. And they are not super stiff. They've got a reasonable amount of flex in them. So these are made with the DBL or Ikari DBL blanks. So the Ikari blanks are all solid core. So there is a solid rod of carbon down the center, and then sheets of carbon are wrapped around the outside. The DBL part of it means deep bias layering, which essentially means they do lots of thin layers of carbon with very precisely aligned fibers in those carbon sheets. And yeah, that's the precise layering is what gives you the ability for Zenaq to control where they have stiff parts of the rod, more responsive parts of the rod and things like that. So it helps to keep the rod, nice and responsive, flexible and powerful. All right, fittings on these rods, they go from, on the spin model, we've got all stainless framed silicon guides. Stainless frames on heavier duty rods because the frame is a little bit stiffer, more rigid, as opposed to titanium on these style of guides starts to flex and stretch a little bit. So generally on the heavy rods, they move back towards stainless a lot more, but you do get a titanium framed silicon tip. So when you get to the smaller sizes, titanium frames are still good. Likewise, on the overhead, we have a spiral wrap. So a little bit different to the standard sort of thing. Also, we have a stripper guide. The RV is a titanium frame because it's a very heavy duty frame. They can still use that titanium there. Also, a thing to note is that first guide is ever so slightly tilted to the right-hand side. That's to make the line as it comes up around the spiral and on towards the reel, just to guide it to the center of the reel. So it just keeps everything running the way it's supposed to. Then from there, you're moving down the rod, you've got back to the stainless frame silicon guides as it spirals around. And then we come down to the tip. Again, we have the titanium framed silicon tip. Going down the rod, we have the typical, for Zenaq, hexagonal shaped grips, so really nice and comfy. Fuji reel seats, I can actually show you both of them there. So Fuji reel seats on both, and then full rear grips. We also have the alloy gimbal fitting as well. So it gives it nice stability if it's in a rod holder, locks them in nice and tight. Also, you can use gimbal belts with the T-bar in them. So yeah, good for fighting big fish. Okay, let's see how they jig. Jigging with a 230 gram jig here, you can see on the faster retrieve, the tip is flexing nicely, middle section's giving good support to rip the jig. With the slower jigging action or the long jig action, the 200 grams flexes nicely through the rod, but it definitely works nicely as well through to about the 400 gram mark. Zane's hooked up there on the spin model. Definitely found the overhead was easier to do the more technical jigging. The spin rod typically works nicely and more balanced when you're doing more fast jigging action. We've got Zane here, loves a bit of a high stick, really leaning into the loading of the rod. It's not a huge dog tooth, but the boat is also driving off the school to try and drag the fish away from the shark. So we're putting a lot of pressure on the fish very quickly. As you can see, it's pretty easy to lean back on it, get heaps of pressure. It loads all the way through the rod pretty smoothly. allows him to lift on the fish comfortably. All right, you can see the flexibility there in the tip part of the rod. And as we go, pop that in the gimbal. Pop that up, get comfy, and get a nice loading all the way through. That's at 12 kilos on the overhead model. Very easy and comfortable lift. So again, you can see that softer tip section. Nice flex there. And we'll go into the belt. Lean back and lift. And again, it's a very comfortable lift. Basically the same between the two rods, the overhead and the spin. They feel much the same when loaded up. So both very nice with that 12 kilo lift there. All right, so to sum up, the Ikari FS and FB 56 J10 jig rods. These rods sit pretty much squarely in the middle of the heavy duty range for Zenaq, or your classic sort of rods for chasing big kingies, amberjacks, large tunas, that sort of thing. So all round larger pelagic and predator rod. They can be used for some heavy slow pitch jigging as well, but being that shorter 5'6" length, it's not ideal for it, but there is enough flex in the blank there to get some slower action out of the lures as well. If you want to do a bit of extra stuff chasing some big bottom fish, you can do that. But where they really excel is doing technical and mechanical style jigging for big pelagics. So yeah, where you hit sometimes in this range, you have rods that are either a little bit on the soft side or very much on the stiff side. Zenaq's done a good job of going straight down the middle with a rod that is supple in the tip and midsection for working the jigs and being very comfortable for anglers jigging for long sessions, but just a steady ramp up through into the butt. So when you are loaded on a big fish, they do still flex a bit into the foregrips, and you can certainly feel them flexing all the way through the blank. It's that solid core blank all the way down. If you like a really stiff bottom end, then maybe these aren't the sort of rods for you, but they're also, by the same token, they're not a soft rod that feels like with some of the very soft rods, they keep flexing and flexing and flexing and you don't feel like you've got any leverage to lift the fish. These ones certainly do ramp up into the butt to give you that nice lifting feel when you're fighting a big fish. So yeah, pretty much in the Goldilocks range, I think, for heavy jig rods. They're that not too heavy, not too light, and not too stiff, not too soft. So I think Zenaq's done a really good job of making a rod that's easy to use. You can get a great variety of jigging actions and you can target some really big fish with it. So yeah, these rods have been very popular already for us in the shop, and I think they'll continue to be pretty much the standard for heavy jigging rods that we sell through our store anyway. Okay, thanks very much for watching. We'll be back again next week with more rod reviews.